Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
You didn't come to Reviews Without Remorse looking for answers. You came here looking for permission. I am David. With me is Joe, and this is episode 121. And in this show we will discuss Brad Pitt's sci-fi adventure Ad Astra gets a trailer, and Joe and I will take a look. Another Ocean's alumni trailer, Matt Damon, this time with Christian Bale, tell the tale of Ford versus Ferrari. And then, the Fox era of X-Men movies comes to a close, as Joe and I give the final report on X-Men, Dark Phoenix. Or is it just Dark Phoenix? I'm kind of confused about that. I see that little wry smile of Joe's. Joe's got an opinion on that one.
Do you think they wanted us to forget that this was an X-Men movie?
Well, in some respects, I'd like to forget that it's an X-Men movie.
Spoilers.
Well, let's have some fun. Let's get at it.
Let's go.
What are you thinking about?
I do what I do because of my dad. He was a hero. He gave his life for the pursuit of knowledge.
Control, if you're getting that over.
Okay, so I knew nothing about this movie. The trailer came out and there's like Brad Pitt in the as an astronaut in a science fiction movie. I'm like, okay, let's take a look at this. And well, first of all, the special effects look really nice, but I have no idea what I just watched. Is this like a sci-fi, action adventure movie? Is this like an Interstellar type movie? I have no idea what it is I'm seeing. I'm curious, but I'm not sure exactly what this is. What's your feelings?
I'm with you in that it kind of almost looks like a couple different movies, sort of hodgepodge into one story. Like this is several stories kind of mashed into one. The visuals look great. In fact, I remember watching this and I had flashbacks of First the Man that was out last year.
Yes. And
kind of feeling like that was just sort of a little too grounded, that it was so, the attempt there was to be so grounded that it just got boring. This one looks pretty visually compelling. Don't know where they're going with this, if it's going to be, grounded or just utter fantasy, but, it's got my interest, so I'm paying attention to it.
Yeah, me too. I gotta be honest with you. All the elements that were in there, I was kind of like, huh. I got this weird, like, little, 12-year-old boy tee-hee with what looks like the on the moon dune buggy fight.
You're right.
I was like, wow, that's cool.
Like that was sort of the moment where you kind of went, oh wow, this is really kind of like I said, like an outer space adventure movie. All of a sudden, it kind of went from very serious looking and very kind of grounded about space exploration to full blown space fights. So
yeah, I colored me curious. It's being directed by James Gray. Now James Gray did a movie way back in 1994 called Little Odessa. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's with Tim Roth and the kid who was the first John Connor from Terminator 2, which actually wasn't a bad flick. But he also did The Lost City of Z, The Red Road, The Immigrant, Two Lovers, We Own the Night. We Own the Night is supposed to be a really good movie. I haven't seen that yet, though. Not exactly a science fiction guy, so I am kind of curious where this is heading.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. You see it? think so.
Most people can't.
Carol Shelby.
Maybe.
Lee Iacocca, Ford Motor. Suppose Henry Ford II wanted to build the greatest race car the world's ever seen to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What in about speed? You need a pure racer behind the wheel of your car. That's Ken Miles.
I don't trust him an inch.
We heard he's difficult.
No, Ken's a puppy dog.
So the story goes that in 1966, Carroll Shelby was tasked by the Ford Motor Company to build a car to beat Ferrari at the Le Mans race in 1966. And now they've done a movie based on that with Matt Damon playing Carroll Shelby and Christian Bale playing the driver, Ken Miles. And by the way, this is Christian Bale after he lost the weight for Vice. This guy is seriously going to kill himself with his dramatic weight loss that he does, don't you think? Remember when he did that for The Machinist, too? In The Machinist, he was like this really thin rail thing, and then he actually put on bulk to play Batman in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
This guy's going to kill himself.
You seriously, you would think he would like stack up a couple fat rolls and then a couple skinny rolls, but it seems like he's constantly going up and down, up and down. It is bizarre. And Jesus, talk about you want to feel bad for not being able to lose the last 10 pounds? Look at this guy. He can bounce all over the place. He'll put on 50 pounds for fun and then take it off for fun. Like it's
genetics is something, isn't it?
It really is.
Now, this movie is being directed by James Mangold. Now, the last movie James Mangold directed was the highly praised by us movie Logan. So that alone got my interest. But actually, this is a pretty compelling story, too. I had heard little things about this story, but not really the full story. And it's, it's going to be a Hollywood version of the story, as it always is. But damn if as I was watching it, it wasn't kind of, nice. I kind of really was kind of feeling like I wanted to see it.
Yeah. I'm with you. This was another one. I honestly, the both trailers we kind of saw this week, both of them I kind of perked up. This one kind of got my attention too. It's got, the cast is great. Like you said, the director is great. So I'm kind of interested in this one as well. And it's kind of rare lately that the trailers kind of grab us like this.
Yeah, and also that it's not like these action-adventure movies or anything like that. It's these, relatively serious, seriously looking character pieces more than anything else.
Right. Yeah, so this one looks pretty good to me, and I think if you're into any kind of car racing movie, this is probably going to be right up your alley.
Ladies and gentlemen of NASA, this is Charles Xavier. Help is on the way.
We're doing space missions now. Cool.
We get the astronauts, we bring them home. Go.
The heat signature's rising fast.
We gotta get out of here.
Where's Jean?
Where is she?
Jean Grey begins to develop incredible powers that corrupt and turn her into a Dark Phoenix. Now the X-Men will have to decide if the life of a team member is worth more than all of humanity. Written by Simon Kinberg, based on the Dark Phoenix saga by John Byrne, Chris Claremont, and Dave Cockrum, based on the comic book created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, directed by Simon Kinberg. X-Men Dark Phoenix. Okay, I'm going to actually come right out and say this. I liked it better than Last Stand.
Okay.
This does not mean it's a good movie. I'm just saying I liked it better than Last Stand. I felt that given the restrictions of the cinematic universe that had been built around this, as opposed to where they had with Last Stand, I felt they did as good a job as they could with the source material and translating it into this universe. However, it's still a shit show. It is a tremendous shit show. It is It's almost mind-insultingly a shit show. I watched this movie, and I'd say about halfway through it, I was thinking to myself, there's something here that could have worked. But for whatever reason, if it was, studio interference, if it was the immaturity of the director or something along those lines, something caused this movie to not fully embrace what it is. Now, I've heard rumors since then that originally they wanted this movie to be a two-parter. And honestly, walking out of it, I thought to myself, you know what? This is one of those rare cases where I think that as a storyline, it would have benefited by being two parts. I feel like they tried. One of the things I said every time we saw the trailer was I felt that if they don't feel sympathetic for Jean Grey, it's not going to work. And they tried. They didn't succeed, but at least they tried. And I kind of started feeling like maybe if they had given it more time, they could have elicited something from that. But they didn't. The movie's runtime is like a lean hour and 56 minutes, the typical runtime of a movie that's been sent out to die by studios. It's like,
yeah.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Justice League. There were some cool elements into it. There were some nice little fan, throwbacks into this that I got a big kick out of. But all told, it just was a whole lot of noise for nothing. I mean, even if you took out the fact that beyond the shadow of a doubt that there will be no sequel to this movie, not with this cast, not with this storyline, nothing like that. That even with that, they could have you could have gotten something from this. But instead, once again, they took like the earth-shattering, world-changing, like the moment within the X-Men universe that forever changed it and truly brought it its popularity, this story, and they keep screwing it up.
Yeah. Well, honestly, and, you're probably, I think pretty much from the day they announced this movie, we both kind of scratched our heads and they were like, oh, we're going to try this again? Because, like you said, I mean, a two-parter would have made a lot more sense because, again, this story is not the kind of story that can be banged out in 2 hours. Or
even 3.
What's that?
Or even 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated story. So to try to just sum it up, and it's kind of like when we talked about Venom, and we kind of said, like, I don't get why the big hard-on to do Venom these days, because Venom was popular in the 90s, and he's not Mr. Popular anymore. So why they keep harping on that character to try to do something with him doesn't make a lot of sense. And this is kind of similar, where, again, it was a very popular story back in the day. I think it's still revered, but the urgency to keep doing this Dark Phoenix story doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when it's just such a complicated story to try to do. Anyway, with that said, I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Oh, I did too. I just felt I should come right out of the gate and explain that it's still a shit show.
Well, yeah, it is. And, the major problem, and I kind of wish, it was funny, I usually try not to watch any of the reviews until we get to it, but I happened to catch Red Letter Media, and they summed it up basically in the first few seconds, and I was like, oh, they said it before I said it. But the problem with the film is that it feels like a very smaller scale story. It's and I don't mind that at all. I feel like not every film has to be earth-shattering, the whole world is going to die, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to see buildings and cities toppling in every single superhero film. So I don't mind a smaller scale story. Having said that, Dark Phoenix is not the kind of story that feels small scale. It should not have felt small scale. So on one hand, there was a lot that I just kind of liked about the film. I thought they did fine. But yeah, this is not the story to do that with. This should have had more of an epic feel. This should have had more weight given to it. I mean, again, this is the Dark Phoenix story. And interestingly, I like the whole idea of, we sort of come out of the gate where the X-Men are superheroes. We've kind of gotten to the point where people like and admire the X-Men. They are superheroes. Good. We've kind of gotten rid of the whole, everybody hates mutants thing, and we're kind of on track. And, he's got the phone directly to the president. And I thought that was pretty cool. I like that. Then when it started to unravel because of things that were happening, I'm saying to myself, well, okay, if all of that is going to unravel because of what again? Because Jean Grey is kind of going a little goofy, and she really didn't do anything that was kind of earth-shattering. I heard it said that if you're going to do the story, you should have had something where something of epic proportions actually happened, to make the world turn on these superheroes. But I kind of walked out kind of going well, what did she actually do? I mean, there was a car crashes and things in a very little small town that nobody probably would have even seen. Then she goes to Eric Lencher, and there's a helicopter crash there. Again, nothing feels very epic. Nothing feels very big. So I'm not getting the whole point. It was almost like, again, the movie kind of, it shot itself in the foot, because again, there was things that it was doing right, but it sort of contradicted itself along the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a mangled sort of a mess. And honestly, from what I understand, the whole train sequence at the end was a reshoot, that they redid the ending and just did that instead. And that was the moment where I was feeling like it was getting exciting. This was kind of working for me. And, if they didn't have that, I kind of don't know what they would have done. I mean, I've heard rumors, but whatever. So yeah, again, it's a weird little movie, because I feel like in itself, it didn't bother me. I kind of felt like it was just fine, but you still sort of have this nagging feeling but it should have been a little bigger and more epic than what we got. And there were moments when it oddly felt very low budget, Or I felt like the settings and the places where things are happening are very small scale. I feel like that whole, the little mutant farm where that Magneto is running. I mean, what did it cost to build that? $20? Then they do the shot in the city where they go into the hotel or wherever she's supposed to be staying in Manhattan, and they don't show you a lot of Manhattan. It's like they go to the trouble to say they're in New York City, and they shoot everything on this little one square block that obviously built on a soundstage. And I noticed everything is on one side of the street is houses, and on the other street is an open field. Whether it was the small town where Jean Grey lived, or the big city of New York City, it's the same thing. They're on the edge of the park, just so they don't have to build anything on the other side. Yes, and then the part when they go to the trouble again, they bring her to Manhattan, right? We're gonna the aliens find Jean Grey. They're gonna bring her to Manhattan. They take her into this house and up to a bedroom, and she goes, "This is what you wanted me to see?" And they're like, "No, we wanted you to see this." And then all of a sudden, the special effects kick in, and they show space and stuff, and they're standing in space. And I'm still going, so why did you have to schlep her all the way to Manhattan into a little bedroom in a house to show her that? It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So again, I'm kind of feeling like it felt oddly small budget. Again, why go to the trouble to do that? So yeah, there you go. That's kind of again, oddly I enjoyed it. Oddly, I was watching this film, enjoying and probably now because I'm familiar with the characters, I know the players involved, so I was interested in watching it. I was enjoying what they were doing. But yeah, the story feels really weird, and it does not feel like the epic conclusion to the X-Men saga. And it is kind of frustrating because, again, this kind of First Class, this is the fourth film in that, that part of this franchise. And yeah, it really started out gangbusters and then kind of just sort of petered out. And it's hard to put your finger on why that is exactly.
It kind of feels like, two things. The first thing is I heard that the way Matthew Vaughn envisioned the First Class trilogy was he wanted to do First Class, he wanted to follow it up with Apocalypse, and then culminate it with Days of Future Past. That was his original idea, and the fact that they switched that is the reason why he left the series. So I'm gonna go with I kind of feel like maybe Matthew Vaughn's idea might have worked better. Well, that's just me.
Yeah. I feel like what we end up with, honestly, if they ended this with Days of Future Past, you would have had a very good ending to this franchise.
And a perfect goodbye to the original members of the franchise.
The whole entire thing, top to bottom, would have worked perfectly. It would have been the perfect send off.
Yeah. The other problem with this movie is that I feel like you can see it on the screen. It feels like the confidence was lost. Whatever happened with Apocalypse, this is a direct response to that. Apocalypse had these big overblown, special effects battles, and here they're a little more muted and a little more intimate, as opposed to these big overblown things. Apocalypse was like 2 hours and 20 minutes and so on and so forth. At least tried to build up the characters, sort of, semi, whatever. This movie had none of that. Previous two movies had Quicksilver be the scapegoat. Well, not the scapegoat, but the escape clause.
Yeah.
Well, they got him out of the picture really early to get that particular problem out of the way. So, and this is this is an example of part of my problem with this movie, because it had these moments that I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, maybe they know what they do. Oh, no, they don't. Literally, they would follow up something I thought, that kind of works for me, with something that didn't. She takes out Quicksilver. Jean takes out Quicksilver, which I thought was really nicely done. I thought it was a very, very well done scene and everything like that. Then shortly after, she kills. Oh, spoiler alert! She kills Mystique, thereby completely blowing up the timeline of whatever that was supposed to be. But whatever, you can say Days of Future Past change the timeline.
Right.
But regardless of that, so she stops Quicksilver. The last you see of Quicksilver is he's being taken off the X-Jet in a stretcher. Nobody mentions him. Nobody tells you about the state of his, condition or anything like that. And you don't see him again until the end of the movie when he does the joke to some kid, hey, no running in the halls. Tee-hee, tee-hee.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That's really not fair to that character, especially a character that in the previous movies the audience really took a liking to because they really enjoyed the way his powers worked and felt that the way that they did them was very clever. But no, but that's like a typical example of this movie that they would do these things that that feels pretty good. That feels pretty good. When Mystique finally dies, I mean, I kind of felt like that was handled really, really well. I thought Nicholas Hoult, even with that ridiculous beast makeup and everything like that, did a really good job and actually kind of moved me a little bit when she died. So I'm giving props to him for that because there was just something in the way that he acted that just felt genuine.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. And there were lots of little moments like that with each of the characters. Ty Sheridan had a moment or two with his Cyclops character that I thought, hey, maybe this guy knows what the hell he's doing. And then a scene later, it'd be like, oh, wait, no, I forget. This is a Fox X-Men movie.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. First of all, I agree that the performances were good. I don't think they've really given Cyclops his due. I kind of feel like to this day, Ty Sheridan is a fine actor. I like him in certain things. I don't think he serves the Cyclops character very well. Again, that's I feel like this entire incarnation of the X-Men has never really paid respect to that character.
No.
And honestly, I felt as I was watching this film, I said to myself, maybe I should have gone back and watched Apocalypse again before watching this film. Because when they started doing the whole bit about Beast being like in love with Mystique, and then he goes to Magneto, and Magneto was sort of head over heels for her, and he was going to get her. I kind of forgot that there was such a. I mean, I remember one scene, honestly, from Apocalypse where Mystique and Beast character are talking to each other. There's a hint of something. I remember that, like, let's run away or something or other. I can't remember exactly what it was, but here it was like this big deal. And I remember kind of going like, all right, I don't really remember that from the last film, but okay.
Well, actually, it was in there since the first movie. They had a flirting in the first movie. Remember, in First Class.
A flirting or I mean,
no, they like he was really trying to get with her, and she was kind of into him too until he came up with the cure, and then they kind of like dissolved a little bit. So it was there since the first movie.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. I mean, I guess I just don't remember it, but honestly, if I can't remember it, I'm feeling like your average viewer is not going to know this. So I think they probably should have done something to refresh people's memory a little bit, and maybe have the two of them together in the beginning of the film or something. But that said, and by the way, then when they all turn on Professor X, I really wasn't buying that. I kind of felt like, I mean, I like what they're trying to do, to say that he's kind of now, falling a little too much. He's enjoying the attention, he's enjoying the accolades, and et cetera, et cetera.
Which I think story-wise, is a compelling place to go, but...
Yes, I agree, right. And I mean, he even says, like, you're enjoying this a little too much. He goes, as opposed to being persecuted? Yeah. I thought that, that was a perfect response, and I thought... But this whole thing about how he did Jean Grey dirty, I wasn't buying it at all. I mean, honestly, I felt like it was one of those times where I'm sort of yelling at the screen when everyone's giving him a hard time. He should have been saying, Jean would be dead right now if I didn't do that. She would have been hunted down a long time ago. This would have turned to garbage years ago had I not, done what I did. And I kind of get the idea. I mean, he is kind of playing God a little bit by not, the implication is that she legitimately full-blown killed her mother. She legitimately caused the accident that kills her mother. And this is too much for a child to deal with. Okay, I get that. But again, the idea that this is sort of all Charles's fault because he did that, as opposed to telling her a long time ago, oh, by the way, you killed your mother. I don't know. I guess I feel like that was sort of trumped up, and I wasn't really buying it necessarily. The fact that they were all kind of looking at him like he was the no good SOB, and again, in the story, he has his own arc where he comes to terms with the fact that he made mistakes. And I see what the story's trying to do, but I wasn't necessarily buying it. I'm sitting there going, Charles, don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, they definitely tried their best to make that a thing, and I don't think it got earned at all. I felt like it wasn't really... Okay, fine. Messing with somebody's mind to make them forget something, yeah, that's a bad thing. I can see that particular angle, but everybody was acting like, he basically, fingered her in the vestibule of a church.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not 100% sure how that can be. I mean, maybe he could have waited until she was a little bit older to talk to her about it. But whatever. It just goes to kind of prove the whole frustrating factor about this movie is that there are some good ideas to pursue, but they don't earn a lot of those ideas. Okay, the schizophrenic nature of the Phoenix character in power. They tried to show it, but I don't think they succeeded there. The idea that Charles's attempts to protect her wound up being the very thing that caused her to explode. Great idea, and weirdly done a little better in Last Stand than here, but we'll get to that when we get to Last Stand. The pseudo Skrulls, and I don't know what happened there. It's like, because originally it seems that they figured they had the rights for the Skrulls, but they don't. They have only the rights to the Super Skrulls. So they had to change that up. I didn't get the whole reason why we needed the aliens. This is one of my biggest problems with the movie. I didn't get why we needed the aliens, and I don't feel like, the aliens that we got was even something worth the effort. Was it just to have these immortal kind of creatures come along so they had something to fight, punchy, kick at the end? I don't know. Jessica Chastain does fine with the character. By the way, did you know that the character's name was Vuk?
Yes, I did. And
okay.
I said, what the fuck is Vuk?
Did you know that from the movie, or did you know that from looking it up later?
I looked it up later, yeah. Yeah,
exactly. How are we supposed to take the characters of the antagonists seriously when we know nothing about them? They're basically, what is the opposite of a Deus Ex Machina, where you're building an antagonist just for the sake of having an antagonist?
Yeah, I'm with you there. It didn't. Yeah. See, I mean, the thing is, again, I sort of just keep going back to the idea that the actual story of the Dark Phoenix is so complicated, and it sort of builds up over such a long span of time that I don't know how you do it as a 2-hour story. So I guess you need things that are going to sort of push things in different directions. I mean, I will say this for the film, at least the Dark Phoenix here gets her powers from a contact with space, as opposed to what they did in Last Stand, where she just turns mean or something or other. But again, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the problem, is like, it doesn't really specifically say, like, if somebody asked me to explain what is the Dark Phoenix, why did it turn her mean, why did it make her kill somebody, I don't know. I mean, it's a combination of an outside force which has infiltrated her and her person, and so her, it's kind of tampering with her brain a little bit. On the other hand, the film implies that she was always screwed up in the head, and that's just starting to unravel now. That, I mean, seriously, the film, again, if you don't know the story and you watch the film and you break it down for what it is, the film does sort of imply she was a screwed up kid from the get-go, killed her mother. Charles Xavier did what he could to try to, what's the word I'm looking for? To try to essentially change her personality, I suppose. And then when things start to unravel...
No. I would hope that's not the thing where he tried to change her personality, because one of the key lines in the movie is, you're not broken.
Right.
I think he just tried to suppress the harsher memories to try to help her heal from the trauma of losing her mom.
Yeah.
And the fact that the dad basically abandoned her.
Okay, right. But again, like I said, if you sort of take the story of the film at face value, she did kill her mother. The father was probably right to get rid of her. I mean, seriously.
Whoa, you're sympathizing with the father?
Well, again, put it this way. Like I said, I'm addressing the story, what the story gave me. Okay, this is how the story was written and presented. This is not a story of, for example, okay, Deadpool 2, the kid, the chubby kid who, is abused at the place and is facing a dark road. He might be making some dark decisions and going down a dark path because he was an orphan and raised in this abusive place, okay?
Right.
Jean Grey is sitting in the back seat of her parents' car. She's got a nice, cohesive family, a mother and a father, and she just doesn't happen to like the song on the radio, so she kills her mother. So, like I said, I would be sympathetic to the father under that circumstance. Yeah, I would probably say, you know what? Don't think I want this kid around anymore. Because A, she killed my wife. B, I'm probably next. Because maybe she doesn't like Linda Ronstadt or something or other. So yeah, the story is, if it's trying to show me that Jean Grey is sort of a victim in all this, well, it's showing me in a weird way. I'm not getting it. So that's why I'm saying that I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about her character. Is she a bad seed, or is she being corrupted by an outside alien force?
This is the biggest problem with this movie, and the problem with the Dark Phoenix saga as a whole. The Dark Phoenix saga, in X-Men parlance, the Dark Phoenix saga should be the X-Men's Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the movie should have the first part should have ended with Jean just embracing the darkness within her and fully becoming Dark Phoenix, and the second movie should have been them figuring out how to take her down or something along those lines. And it lost all of that in trying to condense it into this. I don't feel like they earned the father's animosity. Animosity. Thank you. The other anima. The father's animosity is understandable, but still slightly overblown. It's I guess in mutant terms, it's like she sneezed. The sneeze got boogers on the window and distracted the mother, and that caused the accident. That's pretty much what happened there. Okay, that wasn't a case of her even realizing that she had powers at the time. At least that's what I got across.
Fair enough. Yes, good.
So, in that respect, it doesn't make the father look sympathetic at all, if you look at it from that respect. But, on the other side of the coin, you could say, well, he had no idea, and so on and so forth. But he had enough of an idea that she caused the accident, and in fact said, I can't handle her with these powers. I kind of feel like that would have been a more honest way to go. That he didn't necessarily abandon her. He just kind of admitted, you know what? I can't do this. I have no idea how to do this. I love her, and maybe she'd be better off with you. But the problem with that particular angle is then it doesn't give her the reason for the duality of her character. So the whole setup for that is weak because of it. Because there were other avenues that would have made much more logical sense. The father basically immediately switching off to the daughter, it's not an unheard of story. I have heard of stories like that before, and it's a rough story. In this particular case, it felt so cobbled together that it lost all of its emotional impact. It could have worked, but it just didn't work here. I felt like it didn't work here because I felt like, they were trying too hard to keep both sides of it sympathetic. And the truth of the matter is that they should have gone, if they were going with this particular storyline, the John Grey character should have been harder. He should have been worse. He should have been mean. Because this was the thing that needs to shatter Jean's world as to what she thought her life was before being taken in by the X-Men. And the fact that he was semi-apologetic about it, the fact that he was, they were trying too hard to be Weasley about it. Well, he's bad, but he wasn't completely bad. It was kind of understandable and so on and so forth. In that effort, it failed the progression of the Dark Phoenix character.
Right, and that is exactly my point. I feel like based on what we get, we're not getting a rough childhood. We're not getting an abusive situation. Honestly, by the time Jean goes back to see her father, again, I'm saying to myself, is the crisis here that she's coming to terms with the fact that her father's mean, or is she coming to terms with the fact that she's mean? Is she facing the reality that she did kill her mother? What I'm getting is that her whole world is crumbling, and that's why she's sort of in crisis mode. But is it crumbling because she was a bad person, or because she's still blaming the father? I'm not sure. Basically, like you said, a stronger, more clear script and clearer motivations by these characters would have gone a long way in setting up the unraveling of Jean Grey. Because, like, again, as it is, I'm not quite understanding what I'm supposed to get out of it.
So they introduced Genosha, which was a neat little thing. That's the island that they were on at the that Magneto was on. That's supposed to be Genosha, which was nice. I kind of felt like there was this weird sense of almost like they knew this was the last one, so they wanted to kind of pull in as much as possible from the comics. They had Chris Claremont have a cameo in the White House dinner scene. They had Dazzler.
That was cool. I like that a lot, by the way. When I saw her,
I did too.
Yeah.
I was squirming nicely in my seat when that happened. And did you know who plays Dazzler?
Yes, and I forgot.
Halston Sage.
Who is
Alara from Orville.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I was very giddy when I saw Dazzler. I thought that was cool. Because, like, honestly, I said to myself, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've ever seen Dazzler on the big screen.
Yes, 100%. Down to the little eye thing and everything. It was nice. There was little fan moments which I particularly enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I was very happy for. And then you'd have these other moments where it's like their idea of making you feel bad for Jean. Like, seriously, Sophie Turner, beautiful lady, but she spends like 70% of the movie with tears in her eyes.
Yeah. And by the way, I just have to say it. I'm when I saw her in Apocalypse, I'm not really impressed with her as an actress. I think she's very dry, very wooden. And honestly, I swear to God, I feel like there's so many times where I get frustrated. And I know I've said this before about other actresses or actors. Sometimes I see somebody in a film and I say, that person must, I've never watched the show, but I've said that person must be from Game of Thrones. Because again, they seem so miscast here. They do not seem to work well in this. And they look like somebody who would be in that show. And she's one of them. When I saw her in Apocalypse, I literally said, she must be from Game of Thrones. She just seems so wooden to me. Her delivery was so flat in that last one. And I thought here, I'm like, oh, she can't carry this movie. I really think you needed somebody with a little more gravitas, somebody a little more impressive to handle this role.
I felt she did better, but that's not really saying much.
Yeah. Right. If you're saying she did better, it's like, she's trying. Yeah.
A for effort, you know. Like I said, she's a pretty lady, but I hope she's not expecting a long and lucrative career now that Game of Thrones is over.
Well, again, I think she's probably one of those actresses where if you find her the right role, she'll do fantastic. I've made the Kevin Costner comparison before, where I've said, like, again, good actor just has to be careful in the roles he picks because he's a good everyman. He's not a Robin Hood. So she's probably the same thing. And here I really just felt like she's not good enough to carry a weighty role like this. And again, this whole movie is about her. So it really needed somebody with a lot of punch and power to deliver. Another thing, by the way, I don't get the point of did you at any point feel that this was set in the 90s? Was there anything about the story that kind of screamed 90s to you?
No. Nothing really stood out that it was a 90s based movie, unlike, say, Captain Marvel, which kind of reveled in the fact that it was in the 90s.
Yes. And incidentally, by the way, and I'm kind of getting slightly off track, but one of the things I heard, rumors, was that one of the reasons why there were so many reshoots and rewrites to this film is because as things progressed, it became abundantly clear that the story was starting to unfold exactly like Captain Marvel. And from what I understand, the switch to the train thing at the end is probably because the original ending, where she's out in space and she's on fire and she's blowing up spaceships, that was basically Captain Marvel. So they kind of went, and they had to redo things. Again, to the detriment of this film, because that's probably the smarter ending to this film. Even though I like the train sequence. However, I think that's probably where this film would have naturally progressed to. But getting back to the first one was in the 70s and then we're in the 80s. And again, even the 80s thing I thought was a little goofy, but at least there were some homages to the idea. They saw Return of the Jedi, and Jubilee's outfit looked a lot more 80s appropriate.
Right.
Now we're in the 90s, and, nothing about it seemed to lend itself to that era. And by the way, I've seen a lot of people do these funny memes where this is supposed to be a couple years shy of when the original X-Men opens up and Ian McKellen is an old man. And they did not do anything to age Magneto up to make him look a little older. I don't understand why that would be. That would have been a pretty smart decision for this to at least give him some gray hair, age him just a little bit. But no.
All right, let's do some math. Let's do some math for a second here. Okay, so the height of the concentration camp era of World War II, let's say, was 1944. Let's go with 1944 as an example.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I'll even be generous. Let's say 45. Okay, his character was what? Maybe at most 9 years old at the time. In 1945,
I would have taken a guess, is even between I'd even give him maybe 12 at that point. But well, I see where you're going. So yeah, let's go with 9, 8 or 9.
Okay, let's go with 9. That means he was born in by my math, he was born in 1934. Okay, if it's 45, he was born in 1934. This is 1992. Now let's do some math here. 44. 54, 64, 74, 84, 90. He's 60 years old!
Yeah.
That is not a 60-year-old man! I am a straight man, and I would want to have sex with that 60-year-old man.
They definitely should have taken notice and said, you know what, we're kind of getting close to, right. I kind of a big lapse there, and there was another time, by the way, when after the space mission and Mystique is giving Charles an earful, and he said, first of all,
ex-women. You're going for ex-women, aren't you?
Well, actually, that's not where I was headed, but now that you mention it, again, whatever. It's just so strange when they do stuff like that, because it just sort of stands out, like a sore thumb. Seriously, again, maybe somebody else's idea of filmmaking is different, but again, show don't tell. Well, just show. If this is the case, then just show the women doing things and whatever. Don't shoehorn a line like that in. That's such an obvious pandering line. But that's not really where I was going. During that tirade, she says something about how these are children. These children, were put in harm's way. And I kind of went, really? Because again, these are the characters, some of which we've known since the 1970s, but at the very least, all of these characters we see were in Apocalypse. So all of them have now been here for 10 years. So if there were teenagers in Apocalypse, they're at least in their 20s. So the idea that she's going to call them children, when they all look, by the way, pretty much identical in age, that came across as really weird. I don't. I mean, again, this should have been the full blown X-Men. We should have safely been able to say these are the X-Men. They're not children. So why she sort of harped on that? It seemed a little weird.
It was a terrible choice. The only one that looked like they were still in their teens was the actor who plays Nightcrawler. I mean, seriously, he looks like he's still wearing diapers sometimes.
Yeah, well, he's a very youngish looking actor. And by the way, we didn't mention Nightcrawler going batshit crazy at the end and murdering people.
Oh, because I love that. I really enjoyed that.
I did too. I kind of well, put it this way. I almost felt like the shot of him when he flash forwarded to the front of the train and dropped somebody off and then smiled and came back.
Yeah.
That I thought
I laughed.
Was very cool. Yes, that I laughed too. I thought that was pretty cool. There was another part where I think he slashed somebody's throat with his tail. And I kind of went, that's a little grim. Now the hands-on murdering, I don't know. I get the idea that he was kind of enraged because somebody was killed. That was just a tiny little bit of a leap in character there, and I'm guessing, wasn't there a storyline when Nightcrawler goes a little berserk or something or other in the comics?
There was something like that happened in the comics. I don't remember the specifics at this point, but yes, it is something that's familiar to me. I honestly, dude, I felt it was justified because once it was established that these aliens were like pretty much immortal, you had to kind of go full Monty. You had to kind of just go kill crazy because freaking bullets aren't stopping them. What choice do you have?
Yeah. But I mean, again, but the decision was made very clearly to put a little gleam in his eye as he was killing people, and I kind of felt like I'm not complaining. I mean, it was just kind of a kind of a moment, like, all right, I didn't mind it terribly. I mean, there's nothing in here that I never got the idea he's supposed to be pure as snow. So just kind of an interesting little wrinkle. But incidentally though, I did find the whole train sequence to be very competent. I thought that was executed very well.
For a last minute addition, it was really well done.
Yeah. Very much so. So, I thought that was a nice little. I like the idea that I think the best part of the film was the climax, as opposed to a lot of films where, they sort of climax early and then it kind of peters out towards the end and loses its steam. So I thought oddly, I thought the pacing of the film was pretty good. Despite the fact that a lot of it would just seem very low key for such an important story, the pacing seemed pretty well done, I think.
Why did you make me do that?
Look at me. Focus on my voice. I'm not giving up on you, Jean.
She was my friend.
You're my family, Jean. Stop, no matter what.
Stop. Look. You're special, Jean. And if you stop fighting that force inside you, if you embrace it, you will possess the very power of a god.
All right, let's score this sucker.
Who's going first?
I'm gonna let you go first because I think I went first last week.
All right, I will. I'll just come out with it. I'm going to give this one a 6.
Wow,
generous.
I'm shocked, frankly. Boy, Liam is not gonna like you anymore.
Oh boy, between last week and today, I'm going to be in trouble with Liam.
Oh, you certainly are. But go on, please.
Well, like I said, all along, despite the fact that this is very flawed and the story is very clunky, I honestly found myself. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. It's like I said. It's 5 is kind of my border, right? 5 is my below a 5, skip it. Above a 5 means you will not regret the time that you spent watching it. And I don't think anybody watching this will say, "Oh my God, I wish I got those 2 hours back." I enjoyed it just fine. Again, I'm probably judging it more on the characters, on the actors and actresses, the performances. The set pieces are fine, even though, again, I almost felt like in some ways, oddly, it was sort of a breath of fresh air that it was not the epic, the whole world is going to come to an end in 30 seconds if we don't do this whole thing, and buildings falling everywhere, etc., etc. It was nice to get kind of just, a comic book story that is not just the epic comic book story, and is just, but again, this is not the story to do that with. The Dark Phoenix should have been, like you said, the Infinity War of the X-Men. So yeah, and again, the fact that it is the Swan Song is a little disappointing, but in itself, I found the movie to be reasonably enjoyable. So, again, I would not go above a 6, but in terms of, did I enjoy? Yeah, I did. I really didn't have much of a problem with it during the time I'm watching it. So
this is funny. I find this deliciously ironic, actually.
Especially after last week.
Well, yeah, because last week, I gave Godzilla a 6, and you gave it a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like it hurt you personally and physically. This week, you give Dark Phoenix a 6, and I'm giving it a 4.
Okay.
I can't recommend this movie to people, regardless of the wonderful action sequence that happened at the end. The building up to that was haphazardly put together. The movie opens with them talking about the celebrated X-Men, how awesome the X-Men are, and then all of a sudden, they're out of favor, but now we're hunting them.
Yes, agreed.
What the hell was that? That was just insane. That was the dumbest plotting that I have ever seen in my life. And it just made no sense to me. There were a lot of moments that just made no sense to me. As great as the fight on the train was, as well as I felt that they did what they did to try to compress the Dark Phoenix saga into one movie, I'm not going to give them a freaking participation trophy for that, as you so eloquently put it. I can't. Not, because even outside of the Dark Phoenix story, if you even remove that particular burden, which, let's face it, as sprawling as the Dark Phoenix saga is, when you try to throw it into a 2-hour movie, that becomes a burden to the story. What elements they did have in here just didn't work. They did not have a strong enough actress in the pivotal part. They did not have good motivation for that for that character to go the way that it did. They spoiled what should have been a great, shocking moment in a frickin' trailer. Spoiled it.
Yeah.
Okay? The way that the movie had gone to that point, that would have been akin to 1960s when Psycho came out and Hitchcock was adamant that nobody be allowed in after the movie started and all that other stuff. The whole thing that changed the whole way movies were done in that time because Hitchcock insisted on that, and the shock of killing off the Crane character right in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. That could have been the X-Men's equivalent here. Because this is, of all the characters, this is the one character that's been in all of the X-Men movies. All of them. Save for Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah.
So that should have been a huge, that could have been a huge moment. That could have been a gasping moment, similar to in Infinity War when Thanos grabs the knife that Tony is trying to stab him with and stabs Tony, and the entire audience gasps.
Mm.
Every time I saw Infinity War, when that happened, the audience always gasped. Like nobody could believe what they just saw. That could have been in this movie, and they ruined that for a frickin' trailer, just to put butts in the seat. And that didn't even work. The movie is barely making it at the box office. This movie could have worked as 2 movies. This movie could have worked as a longer movie. This movie could have worked had they actually built the Jean Grey character better and cast better. but it's not going to work in any of those things. Just because it has moments where it does work doesn't mean I'm going to forgive it for the multitude of moments where it doesn't.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with anything you said. I mean, that all makes perfect sense. I'll be honest with you. You know, the part about them spoiling that in the trailer. Honestly, when I first saw the trailer, I did not necessarily get the idea that she was killed. It wasn't until afterwards that it was confirmed by multiple sources that is exactly what was going on, where I realized that was a spoiler. Because honestly, I feel like in any other superhero film, you see somebody get thrown a certain direction, it doesn't mean anything. A grenade lands at your feet, you get thrown 20 feet, and you dust yourself off, and you're good. So I'm sort of agreeing and disagreeing about the actual spoiler in the commercial. They did not show her die in the trailer. But again,
no, they just show Jean saying stop. She goes flying, and then immediately cuts to a coffin afterwards. Whether they meant to or not, they kind of did imply it even in the trailer.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I took that as it could have been a bait and switch, but you're right. No, it wasn't. So yes, actually, I stand corrected. You're absolutely right. So yeah, I can't disagree with anything you're saying in that respect. These are all fatal flaws of this film. And honestly, I feel like this story should have been, sometimes I'll say, one or two passes just one more pass in the writing, one more draft could have fixed this. I don't know that that's true in this case, because I do think that, again, this, like I said, as much as I keep giving it props for being a small scale story, and what it is works for me okay. But yeah, this was probably not the direction to take this story. You're absolutely right. This should have been at least a two-parter.
All right, but let's get into some Who Asked You. Mind if I hit this one first?
Please do.
So, they're on the train. Okay? There was a bunch of things in this movie, and I kind of covered most of them, but I haven't mentioned this one, so this is going to be my Who Asked You. They're on the train. They have just broken free, or the guard has let them free. And they're all standing up there. They're lining up, facing the aliens and so on and so forth. And there's Beast's face. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this woman's voice says, "Why are you doing this?" And he responds, "For Raven." And who was the voice? Who was that woman's voice? It couldn't have been Storm. Storm knows why he's doing it. It couldn't have been the girl that was with Magneto, because she barely said 2 words, and I frankly don't think she would have given a flying flute. Who the hell said that line? Who gave the prompt to Beast to say "For Raven" or whatever the hell the line was? That was so glaring to me, it just jarred me. And it took me like a good 30 seconds into the action for me to get back into it. It was like, what the hell was that?
I don't know. I can't answer that for you, my friend.
I'm gonna wind up rewatching it because I feel like maybe I missed something. Because it just kind of appeared. I'm sitting there, and I gotta tell you, the movie theater I went to, they have like reclining seats and everything like that. So I was nice and reclined, and I was feeling pretty happy with myself. And that comes up, and I literally sat up in my recliner, like, what? Who was that?
That's funny.
How about you, sir?
Mine is, again, I touched on it already, but I really feel that and again, there is a lot to pick from. As we said, this story is incredibly disjointed and very clunky, but honestly, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, I saw this, and again, I kind of saw this coming in Apocalypse.
Yeah,
there were times she was a very minor character in that one, and I just remember some of those line deliveries. I remember this scene of them walking out of the movie theater, and she kind of makes the joke about, well, the third movie is always pretty lame, but her delivery is just so flat, and I'm like, I'm saying to myself, you can't give this poor girl this important role. So when I heard Dark Phoenix, and I knew she was going to be she would have to be the big part of the film, And yeah, just as I predicted, she's just so flat and boring. And again, she just can't. You should not have saddled this girl with this big role. She's not that strong of an actress. She's not. She needs to pick and choose her roles more carefully. And a big over-the-top dramatic role like this one, where you're coming unhinged, I mean, you need a strong actress for this. And if you're going to carry the whole film, we need somebody with a little more charisma than that. So, yeah, that was the first big major stumble in this film, and I think it resonates throughout.
Yeah, I'm going to give you that. We both called that. You were much more passionate about it, but we definitely both called that since Apocalypse. How about for your consideration, my man?
You know what? I'm going to be a little cute with this one because I think, well, first of all, the train finale was very good.
Yes.
I really enjoyed Nightcrawler kind of going a little berserk in the finale. A couple good set pieces here and there, but honestly, the thing that tickled me the most was Dazzler.
Yeah. I agree. I was just giddy in my seat when that happened. Please continue.
Honestly, and it was great because it was funny too, because probably just because of the age that I am and that kind of mid I guess I can't remember, it was like the early mid late 80s. It had to be like the early mid, I suppose.
Yeah. when
I was really kind of getting into comics, and that's when Dazzler sort of came out as being, like a big deal. And I mean, and again, this is not a character that will go down in history as like a super important Marvel character. She's very peripheral, but it was always fun to get the Dazzler comics because in the comics, she was one of those that was like friends with all of the superheroes. Like all the superheroes liked her. And I remember there was one comic that I had specifically where at the end she does this concert, and literally every single superhero. So it was almost like the Secret Wars, but just compacted into this little mini comic about this girl who's a singer, So again, almost like a very silly, guilty pleasure, but it was because it was sort of like that moment in time when she was this big deal. So again, I don't know if I could ever see her in her own film by any stretch, but just this cameo in here where she's doing her thing and she looks exactly the part. And you're seeing her powers kind of like, the special effects were pretty good for that. Just really works. That was a nice little Easter egg treat for people who knew comics back in the 80s.
Dude, I am going to give you that one. That is instantly better than mine. And I actually thought about at first adding Dazzler to it. It's just like, oh no, that just feels egregious. But it's like the way that you describe it, it's like, oh man, you got exactly what I was thinking, but couldn't put into words to justify it. So bravo, sir. Bravo on your choice, and bravo for being able to vocalize.
Thank you.
Honestly, I'm going to give it to Nicholas Hoult. I knew Raven was going to die. I knew Mystique was going to die before I went into this movie. And I knew that Jennifer Lawrence was, pretty much done with the character, had been done with the character, and was glad to throw the character away. So I didn't feel any sympathy for her. But I found myself for a moment, during her death scene, the way Nicholas Hoult played in that makeup, reacting to Raven dying, it got me. And the fact that for that moment it got me, I feel, is a testament to the actor. Because that shouldn't have worked. There's no way that shouldn't have worked. They didn't really ever have a full-blown relationship between the two of them. It was more like a flirting and stuff like that. The death was spoiled, but yet for a brief moment I got emotional. And for that to happen, there's a quality there that I have to point out, because I don't get easily emotional at movies. That has to be an earned emotion for me at a movie. The fact that it did, I wasn't like, oh my God, Tony Stark is dead crying or anything like that. But I got a little bit choked up, and that's a good sign, and that's something I'd like to make sure is given props to. English is my first language.
Very good. All right. I'm with that. I thought he was terrific in this. I agree with you.
And there we go. Well, that's actually, the funny part is here we are at the end of the X-Men saga, but we still have many more to go.
Yep.
Because we're going to be reviewing them throughout most of the summer. Except for next week, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, Joe and I, we were supposed to see this a couple of weeks ago, but due to scheduling, but we managed to work it out. Joe and I will be reviewing Brightburn.
I'm very curious to see what you thought of this, by the way. So,
have you seen it already?
I did, yes.
Okay.
So
I am going to be watching it at some point this week, and yes, I really liked the trailers very, very much. I like the idea of the anti-Superman type deal, but, you know, just because the trailers are good doesn't mean the movie will be good, so we will see.
My friend, I hate to go out with this on a sour note with this franchise, but like you said, we'll revisit, and highs and lows still to come, so...
Unfortunately, more lows than highs, but yes. So, until next time, have a great night, sir. Thank you very much. Awesome job.
You too, my friend, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song and think about sunny weather. Happy trails to you till we meet again.